Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of the MCR Mac and Me. My name's TJ, and in this segment, take a little bit of change of pace on this. We're going to talk. We'll talk politics, but nothing necessarily involving current events, and it involves the gun issue. Use home computers because I know a lot of people are on your handheld device, and this wouldn't necessarily apply to those who use their handheld devices. But on your home computer, when you open up the Microsoft Edge browser, unless you bookmark or set a specific home page, you'll get what I'm going to refer to, and I'm sure Mac might have the more correct technical term here, but you get like a Microsoft homepage.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
And you know what? All my favorite sites are bookmarked, so I'm not worried about a homepage. And so I'll just move on to whatever bookmark site I want to go to. I guess I'm not worried about setting a homepage. I'm content with the Microsoft Start homepage. But there's something very interesting about this Microsoft Home Start page. They have a lot of gun issues, a lot of gun articles, and they're not anti-gun. So much so, I've noticed a trend, and it's caught my eye. And so I occasionally look at them. I read them. Well, this morning, as I open the Microsoft Start page, and what headline do I see? 15 things you should never say to a legal gun owner. And I'll repeat that so there's no misunderstanding. 15 things you should never say to a legal gun owner. Okay? The first thing you should not say to a legal gun owner: why do you need a gun? Because that's what the liberals will tell you. Why do you need a gun?
I've had it said to me so many times.
Oh yeah, and it's been said to me, and I just one of my responses is I say, well, aside from protection, I'd like to exercise my Second Amendment right. And then I launch into the: are you going to deny me my right to the Second Amendment?
Well, I don't think it is. Quoting Hillary Clinton, she's not sure it's a right. Although the amendment starts off the right, or with included in the amendment is the right of the people. So I don't know where her confusion came from.
Number 2, you must be paranoid. Well, paranoid has, taken on like a negative type of meaning, but you know what?
Well, it's a irrational fear of something.
Yeah. But you know what, though? Maybe I am starting to get a little concerned. Yeah. You know what? I read a couple articles last week about an older lady got run over outside of the mall just so they could rob her.
Well, we did a video some while back where we had included in there was a video of a guy running up around a woman to get up the church steps and punch her in the face so he could rob her.
Oh yeah. So then you had a mob ransack a 76 gas station in California also. Oh, and right. The lady, I don't know if I mentioned, but the lady that got run over, that occurred in a upper middle class Republican district. In fact, the Republican mayor from the news report, he was pretty livid at it all. Okay.
Well, crime, and this is what these idiots don't understand, is you can be in a quote good area and still have bad things happen to you because the bad people can come to your area.
Yeah. Number 3, guns are the problem. So much for holding people accountable for their action.
Right.
So you're gonna blame the piece of equipment as opposed to an obvious character flaw of some sort.
Right. So if I go out and I drink 25 beers at my local pub, I get in my car, I drive down the road and run over someone's family, it was the car was the problem, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? A facility
under that line of thinking, that would be
yeah.
that would be the conclusion. Okay.
Number 4, gun-free zones work like hell.
Where's the
You know,
evidence? Where's the evidence of every mass shooting virtually is in a gun-free zone?
exactly. And I used to. And speaking of gun-free zones, I remember I was debating anti-gunner once, and I said, "How many shootings have you ever read about in the news at a gun range?" I said, "And an environment where you couldn't find, other than the battlefield, we'll say, where you couldn't find uh, so many loaded firearms in close proximity to each other." And so,
On people's persons too.
yeah, and as I said this to this anti-gunner, without thinking, their response was, "Well, everyone's got a gun. Of course." You know what? Thank you for making my point. You know,
Right.
but anyways, on to number 5. The Second Amendment is outdated, and we referenced the Second Amendment when we started with number 1. And the thought is, well, if the Second Amendment's outdated, is the First Amendment outdated? Is the Ninth and 10th Amendment outdated? And you know what? There's Democrats that want to say that right now.
Well, they've said it. They want a central federal government that makes all the decisions. Oh, and by the way, going to Miss Ocasio-Cortez, she doesn't even believe in the Separation of Powers Act.
Yeah. Number 6, you're compensating for something. Ha ha ha. You know, a little bit of a less than flattering accusation in that.
Well, let me apply that somewhere else. Is that the case if you drive a manual or an automatic transmission too? Because a real man can drive a stick shift.
Oh yeah, and you know what?
He could do it.
Right.
He can shift those gears himself. He doesn't need the transmission to do the shifting for him. So I'd say he's compensating for something, he or she.
Yeah. Number 7, you must be a Republican. Well, the odds are they are, but I know of at least one liberal who does own a handgun. And in regards to this one particular liberal, and this is horrible to say, this individual that I'm thinking of bought a handgun a couple years ago and has yet to shoot it. And I just,
well, that's their prerogative, of course, but it'd be like buying a bowling ball and never throwing it.
Well,
what's the point?
When
only difference is the bowling ball is not going to get you killed. Chances are.
As I was speaking to this individual, I said, "What?" I said, "Why even have the thing if you're not going to be adequately trained in it?" And then I offered to provide, my insight, or I said I can get you up to speed if you like, and he said he'd think about it, and well, months have passed, and clearly he's ceased thinking about it.
All right.
But I do know at least one liberal who's a gun owner. All right.
I wouldn't help any liberal learn how to shoot a gun at this point in our lives.
Number 8. Number 8's going to touch on a sore spot. Only the police should have guns.
Well, they said the police shouldn't have guns too.
Yeah.
What they're saying there is only the government needs guns. Well, ask the Native Americans were told they didn't need guns. How'd that work out for them?
Yeah. Number 9. It's too easy to get a gun.
Yeah, that person's never tried.
I always think about the time when the reporter attempting to make this case walked into a gun store and was shocked that they couldn't just walk out with one.
Yeah.
And I wish I could cite that article. I know I read it like last year sometime. Okay.
Well, here's something we could do. If they think it's not hard enough, here's what we could do. We could make you have to take a drug test to get one. And you know what?
Exactly.
None of them would have one then.
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. Number 10, assault weapons bans work. They tried it in the 1990s and threw in the towel on that one. You know.
Yeah, that's here's what they ignore, or what they want to ignore. They'll look at a guy who maybe uses, let's say, an AR-15 at a shooting. They don't look at the other 25 million people that have them, and I'm making that number off the top of my head. I don't know what it is really is, but let's say 25 million people have them, and I wouldn't doubt if that's not right. But what about those people? They're not out shooting anyone.
Well, first of all, civilians are not allowed to buy an assault weapon because technically an assault weapon would have full automatic capability.
Yeah. First off, let's address that term, assault weapon. Assault is a verb, is it not?
He assaulted me. Yeah.
So that means an action. A gun cannot take an action. It's
That's
an
right.
inanimate object. It requires a person to operate it. So the whole premise of, is this an assault pen? No, but if I could stab you in your carotid artery with and kill you.
Well, and I'm going to go back to the 1990s when they tried that assault weapons ban. And what they failed to realize that for every zig, there's a zag. Yeah, you like to say that. For every zig, there's a zag. What they did was when they said an assault weapon has a muzzle brake or a flash suppressor. Well, what they did was either they just simply lopped it off and went with a straight barrel, or put on a muzzle brake. They said, well, you can't have a bayonet lug. And they would lop that off and say, well, bayonet lugs are outdated anyways. We don't need a bayonet lug. Well, you can't have a pistol grip. And they would say, okay, well, we'll go with a thumb hole stock, And I remember Nancy Pelosi complaining back then how, for all their efforts, and that's part of the reason why they threw in the towel on the assault weapons ban back in the 1990s was, well, you can't have a pistol grip. Okay, we'll just have a thumb hole stock.
It brings to mind, it's like you and I sitting down to play chess, and I never think about what your move might be after I make my move.
Yeah. Also, and this is currently out in California primarily, where they've kind of lowered the hammer on pistol grip stocks. They have. I've always referred to it as a Monte Carlo type of stock, where it's not a true pistol grip. It's and you see them a lot on Marlin 3030s too, if you're familiar with that. But you have an aftermarket manufacturer where you can take off your stock and your pistol grip and put on this. I'm going to call it a Monte Carlo stock. I'm sure one of our viewers might say, "Oh, it's really called this instead." But and the thing, and it works. I mean, you lose the pistol grip, but you still got the AR platform with the Monte Carlo stock. So the assault weapons ban, it's kind of a joke with the way they even tried to define the ban. But I digress.
Well, it goes to this point. They don't know anything about firearms.
Oh, just like, and you mentioned that, but when they were talking about bump stocks and arm braces, and one of the Democrats was making the case about how the arm brace enabled the weapon to be fully automatic, or like a act as if it were an automatic weapon, and they were getting confused. They were getting confused between the bump stock and the arm brace. And one of the Republicans said, "Man, why don't you get your terminologies right for starters?" He said, "You don't even know what you're talking about." And
they never do.
And the Democrat got all offended at that accusation, But anyways, I'll move on here. Number 11. Only criminals have guns. You know what? I suppose there's truth. Criminals will always get guns.
Yeah, that's right. They don't care about your laws. Pass as many as you like.
Number 12, you shouldn't have a gun if you have kids. Meaning that if you have children and a gun's in the house, you've just put your children's lives at risk.
Same is true if I have a steam iron or a bottle of bleach or a toaster. Yeah, but here's the thing. I was in charge of my children. They weren't in charge of the house like kids are today. So maybe they have a point today. I don't know, because their kids run the house.
Well, we've always advocated here responsible gun ownership.
Yes.
And that position alone has kind of enhanced the makers of different types of safes. You got safes with push button. What do you call it? Push button code where you can very
Keypad.
quickly. Yes, thank you. Where you can very quickly open the safe to the point where you're not fumbling with a key and this and that.
Right.
You punch in 4 numbers and bada boom, bada bing. Yeah, it's out. It's out.
Or you can have biometric where you use a fingerprint, thumbprint, something along that line.
Yep. Anyways, as we move on, let's see. Number 13. You must be a gun nut. Well, there you go with the name calling,
Well, everyone, I had someone say to me, "You love your guns." No, I don't. I love my bowling balls, but I don't love my guns. It's a tool. Do I love the forks and knives in my utensil drawer? Do I love my power saw? Do I love my lawnmower? I mean, it's a tool, and this is what they don't understand.
Yeah. Number 14, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this already. Guns kill people. Well, you know what?
No, guns don't kill people. People kill people. It's a cliche, I know, but I've had a pistol for 35 years, and it's killed no one.
Yeah.
And God willing, it'll stay that way.
Okay. And last but not least, number 15, you are part of the problem. So if you own guns and you're a gun owner or a weapons enthusiast, you're part of the problem. You're part of the reason this society's going to hell in a handbasket.
Well, this is the worst thing I'd say you could say to me personally, because now you've indicated that I'm a problem that needs to be corrected or solved.
Exactly.
Now, how do you solve that problem? Well, by taking away my rights or imprisoning me or making it so I can't defend my very own life. So you know what? Maybe you're the problem I'll solve now. Don't become my problem is what I would tell them.
Okay. Well, that's all I got. 15 things you should never say to a gun owner. And you know what? I thought that was a pretty good article on the Microsoft Start page. And for those who use the Edge browser, you may know what I'm talking about already. And quite often they'll have, I would define it as favorable articles regarding firearms, which actually surprises me a little bit,
Yeah.
But we'll call this one a wrap, and that'll be about it. We'll catch you all in the next segment. As always, be safe, watch your 6, and don't tread on me.